Zamlin Keno Yongi, Seme Shive Langde, Dani Chemo, Geru Ninje Rangsu, Hajo Chana Pemo, Ui Kerati, Chemo Zinga, Domzeme, Hadi Namro, Kamsun Chogi Gebo, Hanji Kenji, Sigo Chembo, Jejun Jambe, Nawalo Saishi, Tinzin Gaso. Sisung Wangyu, Sumban Nebe, De Fe Sango, Halo Kunja, Geju Pebe, Gui Gadun, Gesangi, Chunga, Sudengi, Zevor Pebe, Kunjen Zor, Kuzak Dunju, Shebet La, and so we should have the Nixie Kunje Soge Rumuchecho, Zeve Lajun number, Peri Pinda number down, Shigenki, Chobo Samala, Nye, Tari Peri Sobe Sarshune, Ning Kapone, Distillation. As is customary, let me now request the representative of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Mr. Trembel Siringla, to place a kata round the photograph of His Holiness, followed by our special guests. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The reference to the admiration and the reverence from the Tibetans and from people around the world was clearly demonstrated by the recent visit. In Glastonbury, the response to His Holiness's presence was extraordinary. Everywhere he went, there were children, adults, both young, old, wherever he went, people coming up to his car saying, look, it's the Dalai Lama, it's the Dalai Lama, all trying to get a photo with His Holiness, trying to get a blessing from His Holiness, and in some cases, in fact, I think one person succeeded in getting a selfie with His Holiness as he was driving past. But the response, the reaction was immense, and I think it's a reflection of His Holiness's tireless efforts over many, many decades to promote a message of compassion, non-violence, tolerance, and the messages that are universal and which have a resonance across the globe. So I think as Tibetans we can be immensely proud of the standing and the esteem that His Holiness is held in both by the wider Tibetan Buddhist community, but also from people of all faiths and no faith. So I think, on this day, as well, His Holiness will be 80 on 6th of July, but today, on behalf of everybody here, I think I would like to wish His Holiness a very happy birthday. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you will enjoy what promises to be an evening packed with old and modern songs and dances. The artists and everyone involved in preparing tonight's performance have devoted much time and effort over the last few months, practicing practically every weekend. The Tibetan community in Britain sees this as an important part in preserving our rich cultural heritage, especially as you can see, our community is growing. This will become evident as we sit back and enjoy the show. So to kick off, our first item is called a song called Geju Yange, a special song dedicated to His Holiness's birthday. Ladies and gentlemen, the song will be performed by our older group.
Wonderful to see so many of my old friends here. Really, so many, bring a lot of memories. And I was, for the last 3 years or so, always been invited very kindly by the Tibetan community, but I've never been able to honor the invitation because of my own retreat program supporting toxin-bearer therapy. But on this occasion, I intend the whole thing. Again, especially because it's a big one, which is His Holiness the 80th birthday. So I've really been very happy to be here. And also had the great honor to see His Holiness and receive his blessing just recently. Just a few days ago, 120,000 people, mostly young people, in Glastonbury Festival greeted him with wild enthusiasm and joined together in singing happy birthday for His Holiness. This tells us so much about him because he has become so known, so loved the world over as one of the greatest leaders of our time, as a champion of peace and non-violence, as someone who is deeply concerned about the big problems facing the world and who devotes his entire life to the welfare of humanity. With his message of kindness, compassion, and universal responsibility, he has touched and transformed the lives of millions of people of any or no religion, rich or poor, young or old, and lit in their hearts a flame of hope, inspiration, and courage. People everywhere have warmed to him, as he inspires so much love, joy, warm-heartedness. We all seem naturally drawn to his uplifting, optimistic vision of a more caring, fairer, and a saner world, because we recognize that the human values that His Holiness promotes of love, forgiveness, tolerance, and concern for others hold the key to inner strength, confidence, happiness that we are all searching for today. Acknowledging that there are many who do not follow any religion and deeply concerned by the stress and anxiety, depression and loneliness he sees all over the world. His Holiness he speaks of a universal secular ethics, a new way of thinking about spirituality and compassionate behavior. Instead of our usual us and them mentality, he says the time has come for each and one of us to start thinking and acting on a basis of an identity rooted in the phrase, we human beings. I pray that during his lifetime, he may return to Tibet. In fact, Jagdish Sakachinji recently very movingly said during the celebration of his Tibetan birthday on the 22nd of June in Dharamsala, he said that he was commenting on this really extraordinary long life prayer composed by Doji Sanjaman Philosophy in the Lhasa main cathedral. In fact, he said everything that Doji Sanjaman Philosophy predicted, they all came very clear. Now one thing that has to be fulfilled, which he said that these donors will travel to Potala. They will enjoy a long life and serve all sentient beings. For me, the Catholic Psychiatrist said, for me, this is a prophecy because everything else in the prayer has happened exactly as Every Doji-chan Yamaguchi reported. So I firmly believe that these donors will soon be able to return to the Potala in the Lhasa, and the Tibetans, both inside and outside, will come together and meet once again. For me, there is no doubt that this will happen, said Catholic Secretary. So anyway,
the first dance of the evening will be performed by our youngest members. It's a dance called Devanhala, literally translated as on the playground.
what a great privilege to be present on this great occasion of the 80th birthday of the Dalai Lama, His Holiness. I'm only 1 year younger than His Holiness. I'm 79 and His Holiness is 80. So he's my older brother. And I met His Dalai Lama when I came to year 1956. He was invited to one of our ashrams, Gandhian ashram in Bodh Gaya. And I was a member of the ashram. And then His Holiness said, I want you all, the members of the Gandhian ashram, to come to Tibet House in Bodh Gaya. So we all went along. And then we were served Tibetan tea. Now, that was my first time when I had Tibetan tea with butter and yak milk. In India, I don't know how they got it. It must have been dried milk or something. But then later I went to Tibet and I started to drink it. And first day, second day, third day, then I started to like it. So now I'm very fond of Tibetan tea. But it was introduced to me by His Holiness the Dalai Lama in 1956. Now, I'm very proud of the fact that India, as kept speaking as an Indian, India has welcomed His Holiness the Dalai Lama in India and has offered him a home in Dharamshala. And many hundreds of thousands of Tibetan people in India now living. This is a wonderful thing for India. We are honored, we are grateful that His Holiness Dalai Lama has made his home in India. Isn't that wonderful? And so with this word, I want to say to Tibetan people that Tibetan Buddhism and Tibetan teachings, now after the Tibetans have been put into exile, the world has learned much more. So what has been a great loss and great suffering, sometimes great benefit comes out of great suffering. Nelson Mandela was in prison for 27 years. What great suffering. And out of that came the end of apartheid. Mahatma Gandhi was in prison for 12 years. Out of that suffering came the independence of India. So, Tibetan people, you have suffered into exile and many other difficulties, you have lost your homeland, and yet you are giving your love, your teachings, Shodhya Rinpoche's teaching, Shodhya Trungpa's teaching, His Holiness Dalai Lama himself teaching, and many great teachers have come out of Tibet and teaching Buddhism, teaching compassion, teaching love. That is a great benefit to the world. So in spite of all the suffering, in spite of all the loss, you Tibetan people have suffered by losing your homeland, but at the same time, you are doing great service to the world. So I congratulate you, Tibetan community, as much as I congratulate His Holiness Dalai Lama.
Thank you.
Next we have another song called Nye Semgi Nima, or Son of My Heart. This is a great song written for His Holiness as the 14th Dalai Lama by another singer in exile called Chola, showing full affection and gratitude for his 80 years of hard work and sacrifice for the cause of 6 million Tibetans in and outside Tibet. By calling him Son of My Heart and wish-fulfilling jewel of kindness, children sing this song, wish to thank His Holiness for being a wonderful leader, a compassionate teacher, and for being a simple monk, beloved and admired as the most respected and trusted person on this planet. Ladies and gentlemen, Nye Semgi Nima.
an enormous privilege to be here this evening, and an enormous privilege to be addressing the Tibetan community in Britain and so many friends of Tibet. I've been wondering what are the greatest achievements of the present Dalai Lama. And I thought, well, what would encapsulate his great achievements? And I think, strangely enough, one of the greatest things he's done, paradoxically, is to resign his position as political leader of the Tibetans. That was an extraordinarily courageous thing to do. That was an extraordinarily courageous thing to do. Think of Chairman Mao. Did he resign? I don't think so. Deng Xiaoping, did he resign? I don't remember that. Mr. Mugabe, has he resigned? I don't think so. But no, the Dalai Lama had the humility to step down when he was at the height of his power, 3 or 4 years ago, to step down and to resume the life of an ordinary Buddhist monk. So I think that was an extraordinary achievement. But it's easier to say that his greatest achievement has been putting single-handedly, I would say, putting Tibet on the map. There's no one in this country who hasn't heard of Tibet now. 100 years ago, people would have stared blankly at you, where's Tibet? Even 50 years ago, even 30 years ago, very few people had heard of Tibet and knew where it was. I defy anybody today to say that they don't know where Tibet is or where the Dalai Lama is from. So I think that is a great achievement, single-handedly, to have put Tibet on the map, in the consciousness of the world. What other great things has he done? I think the Dalai Lama will be remembered as the man who united Tibetans, the man who united, the leader who united the Tibetan people, the Tibetans of the East, of the West, of the South, Amdo, Kham, U, Tsang, the different provinces. He's the first Dalai Lama, I think, successfully to have welded Tibet since the time of Songtsen Gampo, the king, the 7th century king. So he's united Tibetans. What else has His Holiness done? I would say that resolutely he has stood up to the Chinese. Think of all the opportunities, he's had to give in to the Chinese. Over the years, they've given him nothing. And all he's done is show them his affection, is show them his kindness, is show them his compassion. Think of the number of times that he could have given in. Think of the number of times he could have said, well, yes, perhaps now the time has come. Perhaps the resistance should cease to be peaceful. But no, he hasn't done that. He's stuck resolutely to the way of non-violence. But I suppose above all, one could say of His Holiness that his greatest achievement is perhaps the fact that he walks the walk. He is the living face of compassion. He is the living face. He's given a face. He's given a name. He's personified compassion itself. If you use the word compassion now in English, who's the first person we think of? Who is it? I think it's His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And yet for all that, I think of him in relation to the great 13th, when he comes out of the dak bungalow and he runs his fingers through the little girl's hair. Despite all this, despite the awards, despite the 67 countries visited, despite the adulation of 120, 30, 40, 50,000 people at Glastonbury last weekend, he's retained his simple humanity. So perhaps that's his greatest achievement of all, remaining a simple human being. Thank you very much indeed.
Next, we have the middle dance group who will be performing a dance called Lek Shin or Chu. This is an extract of a historical play from the time of King Jisong. It describes how learned Tibetan Losas traveled to India to study Buddhism and on their return translated religious texts and how Buddhism flourished in Tibet. Ladies and gentlemen, Lekshe Longchung.
And to be celebrating His Holiness's birthday in the company of so many good friends and compatriots in this movement, who's all celebrating together. It feels like representatives are us. I can see so many people, and Mrs. Tackler, I swear, you have not changed one jot since I first met you. I've been involved in the Tibet movement now for nearly 20 years, and a fraction of His Holiness's lifetime so far. I come from Greenpeace. I was a die-hard direct actions protester and activist, not a Buddhist, and I knew almost nothing about His Holiness. But I discovered straight away that he is the most inspiring, charismatic individual I've ever met. I first met him in 1998, and that's been the sort of lesson I've taken ever since, that our role is to make change in Tibet. So practically my favourite quote of His Holiness is the one where he says, if you think you're too small to make a difference, try sleeping with a mosquito. And that's got very special associations for me, because when the Chinese Premier Zhu Rongji came to the UK in 1998, the Chinese officials accused us all of being buzzing mosquitoes. And we thought that was the highest compliment. And I was really delighted to hear His Holiness in Glastonbury last weekend re-emphasising the importance of non-violent protests and demonstrations on climate change. His passionate belief that individuals can change the world is something that has just been a source of constant inspiration. He's obviously globally recognised for the amazing impact he's had, his dramatic raising of the profile of non-violence, religious tolerance, compassion, as we've heard. His impact on the Tibet issue, I think, defies adequate description, inspiring millions to support the movement, unifying the Tibetan people, steadfastly resisting China's best efforts to demonise him. And it's really this that, I feel most strongly about. If the world wants an end to the appalling, unspeakable violence that we're seeing around the world at the moment, the global politicians simply must pay attention. They should be flocking to His Holiness's message of principled non-violence, the principled non-violent way of resolving the Tibet issue, and also the pragmatic research that shows that non-violent struggles are actually more successful than violent ones. And that's our job as the Tibetan movement, to make the world's politicians listen and take action and set us on a different path. So now is the time for the international community to stand together in support of Tibet. Through grassroots action and advocacy, Tibet groups around the globe have been telling the world what's happening and demanding our government to take urgent political action. We call on world leaders to unite and to address the Chinese government with one voice, to demand that China ceases all actions and policies contributing to the current tensions, unrest and self-immolations in Tibet, and responds positively to the Tibetan people's call for freedom and the return of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. We send our congratulations to His Holiness on his 80th birthday and vow to intensify our efforts in support of Tibetans inside Tibet. We appeal to the global community to join us, to stand on the right side of history so that one day soon Tibetans can live in peace and freedom and His Holiness can go home. Thank you.
So I'll move on to the next item. It's a dance called Sitting Asur, performed by our older members. They will perform a dance which is, the translation is Coronation on Golden Throne, and comes from the province of Amber, where His Holiness was born 80 years ago. Ladies and gentlemen, Sitting Asur. A black cat dance by Teshilambu monks.
right at the back, can you hear me? Over there? Yes, great. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's so good to see so many Tibetans and friends of the Tibetan people gathered here to celebrate the joyous occasion of His Holiness the 80th birthday. So a very big thank you to all of you first. Next, I want to thank our eminent speakers, Venerable Sogyo Rinpoche, Mr. Alex Norman, Satish Kumarji, Alison Reynolds, and His Excellency Representative Trempe Tringla. You have covered in depth the greatness of His Holiness, and I have nothing more to add to your wise words. I also mention a special thanks to the Tashalumba monks for being here, starting this evening's event, the program, and closing this evening's program. Thank you very much, Tashalumba monks. Chino Basa Jambu Chimbo. Wouldn't you ship a chimbo choki? We are going to be somebody near Pirichombe, so to me, you let out today. Say, Yamima, Sama, somebody should the church, Narin de Lenzum Chicken, Chodaka, Mamudi Penasha, Scotland Penasha, Ganashi, Wales, Liverpool, Manchester, Doncaster, Chodaka, Mamudi Pesha, Jeza, you did Namudilaya. Jeju jo Haushga Ju, Sting Anzu Bezo. Kurze Jeje, Bege Gabe, Bege Janje, Bege Janje, Rishu Jinji Jelina, he Zamachi Pendes, Tusu Yure, Haras now, Bebe, Namchudi, Chiola, Penetrate to Yobadi, Yormuchi, no Mambuchi. Luchuda Mangunalia Tarje, Pedu, Castle, Yamleche, he lives on the color of Shiri, he let somebody, Commercial, you wish you should have chosen, and maybe for somebody's duty. I need the Tangazu being research in the door, so Harichi. I want to be a community, and to have Harichi. Yawamuchi, that Jivosu, the young man, the teacher, and he needed a Yawamuchi to make the chair, Harichi. Cheda, and I'm going to be doing here, Mimakus, then go Jay, hello, Dr. Gibush Louis, Chezan and the new shoe must be called you shoe, education, share, both of the share, you should take a year. But based on I'm going to say, you know, how it is. I look to the Nivanalia, Tibetans helping Tibetans. For me, Robert says, he could do all that. Whoever we should do, you may take out and down, whoever I'm the Chinachi. He has to make a Chidway in Nuba Yoga Chida, Hadu Mama Chiegi, based on Catalan. Yorumuchi, Chungadilia, Sramune, Hasure, Kelly Kamjachi, oh, Tarina Pukuta Chinachi, some is done by Yorumuchi, Redure, Pukula Shade, Dila, Dile to Mesoji, Yuresamutu, Chena, Limanzo Kamashegi, you just some of the George in Shiwena. We make get it, Sungyoche, Beja Navaina. Pachidane, Mamushi, Chadi, Yinea, the Kimucha and Lendes, it is a Maya. Manzo Pamaki, Susupula, Peggy, Yamushikavana, and a pose of mood in the Peggy. Yatuwe Chita, Tande, Italia, Manzuki, Miracle, generation. We can tell you, here's your shoot child. Mazuma, City, at the Tamu, we say in Nuchogi, Kosure, the Korean on the township, it's a Peggy, the Fukushka, it's a Maya, Chedamantula, get you shoot child. Chedam, 달렌달에 찍나 이들아 미상고 미야고 사회지에서 상도 산이 베게던 쉐디 기자. And finally, I would like to first His Holiness, everyone, many happy returns of the day.